you. This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Dios lo bendiga. Este es Reverendo Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Welcoming you to another broadcast. At this hour, we have our bilingual broadcast, our teaching in English and Spanish. So we ask that you be patient as we translate live on the fly between languages. Esta es la hora que damos la enseñanza en inglés y español y pedimos que tengas pues paciencia mientras que traduzcamos de un idioma al otro. Aproveche y aprende el otro idioma. While we're at it, you can learn the other language as well. Es un beneficio de sintonizarse con nuestro ministerio. It's a benefit, an added benefit I should add, of tuning in to our ministry. And God bless you and welcome. Dios le bendiga y bienvenido a esta clase de hoy. Today's class is the part 2 of the analysis of the history, the impact of the definition, the wrong definition, mind you, of the word holy, the subsequent failure of Israel, and the inception of atheism. In other words, how we studied before how this situation created a delay in education and in human advancement. Now we're going to see how it also fostered atheism. We started last week. This is the second of the teaching into atheism. But before we go on, I'd like to point out that we have an all-important seminar coming up for New York City. It's really a worldwide debut of this important seminar entitled Atheism Must Move Beyond. This is an important seminar because this seminar finally gives atheists what you've been looking for. And it's what you've been looking for because it will, in absolute, convince all Christians, okay, of your main point. And I'm going to be, and I'm a Christian, right? So I'm going to be talking about that. You know there's something, there's nothing up my sleeve, but you know there is something else to this, right? But that's why you need to attend this seminar. Because the folks that attend this seminar are going to advance beyond atheism as it is right now and will be better positioned, better equipped for the oncoming conversation, because we're going to move this conversation beyond. You guys are stuck, okay? So we're going to finish with this, all right? And again, for Christians, for believers, and not just Christians, but believers in God, this is also a very important seminar to attend. This is not a debate. It's a presentation of facts, okay, of facts. And again, it's really not an issue of the presenter. There's really there'll be no cause for you to attack the messenger, in this case, my person. It's going to make you reflect on your conversation up to now, on the posit of atheism and that of theism. You guys are going to have to rework it because of the revelations that are going to be discussed and revealed during this seminar. So it's an important thing. It's free. No one's selling you any tickets. I'm telling you right now, I can't pay for any venue. So if a lot of you want to come and, there's an issue of venue here and cost, because that costs money. So I don't have a venue in New York to house this. If you have one, or if you would like to contribute towards the venue, that is perfectly okay and, makes sense. And I know that atheists don't have a problem with logic. So let's see it. But this is a no charge, admission free, but you must register. Okay, and if you want to donate towards this, logic tells you and compels you, well then you go to tspci.org and you can make a contribution there at that site. Okay, you make sure you put the note, this is for the conference on atheism. Fine, that's beautiful. And I'm sure everyone that attends will be very appreciative of that donation, and I'll put it on the list of people who donated and contributed towards the venue, because that's what all we need to do is pay for a venue with for everyone who's coming. Okay, so this Atheism Must Move Beyond, it's October the 28th, Octubre 28, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Who should attend? Atheists desiring to advance the conversation. Theists, believers who seek the truth of God. It'll be, if you follow that link, sigue ese enlace, los que quieren asistir a este seminario gratis. No cobramos, pero sí, si quieren contribuir para el sitio donde lo podemos tener, pues, o si tienes alguna iglesia, algún teatro, puede donarnos el espacio, pues estaremos agradecidos. So if you have a theater, you have a church, or you have a meeting place, and you want to contribute that to this seminar so that we can all sit there and have this seminar at that place, then I'm open to that. Okay, because right now we don't know where to have it, and in either case, we will need funds to cover any venue that we pay for. So I'll take anything for free. I'm offering this for free. Okay, and also those who cannot attend in New York City on October the 28th, or for any other reasons, like, you don't want to get too close to other people's germs and viruses, well then, there will be, if you register, you'll get the link for the online virtual link. All right, so I'm going to try to do it. I can't guarantee it, but I'll try to get a webcam going and tie into YouTube Live or some other one of my other video platforms so that you guys can watch. Okay, but in either case, and also if you go to eventcube.io and bbi.eventcube.io, for those of you who have capacity, it would be nice, so, and you feel that you would want to have a rebuttal, I'm gonna be publishing a book next year based on this and further information. Now, if you want to, you're attending this, because that's the thing, you got to attend this, and you want to reserve a spot in the book to rebut. I will have, because I'm not afraid here of opinions and information. This is a pursuit of truth. So this is very transparently a pursuit of truth. And I'm not afraid of having opposing viewpoints published in this book that's coming, because this is a pivotal information. This is pivotal to this whole atheism and theism controversy and debate. This is going to change the game. That is no doubt. There's no doubt about that. So I don't have any objection to including rebuttals in the publication that's going to be made from this seminar, from the key points in this seminar. More elaborative, but basically what I'll be covering in this seminar. So if you have substance capacity, and you want to have an opportunity to rebut in the book, because that book's going to be the landmark, then I'm opening that up at bbi.eventcube.io. There is a fee. It is a substantive fee. So it's not for someone who just wants to, repeat what thousands and millions of others have said already. You're going to have some stuff, and you're going to have some resource in order to buy that ticket, because that's a ticket that you'll have to buy, and it reserves you a spot in the book for your rebuttal. So only serious pockets and serious minds need apply. So I'm just saying that. So if you know someone that is the brain in your circle of influence, then point them to the eventcube.io listing of this event. It's exactly, the URL is bbi.eventcube.io, and tell them to look for the ticket for the rebuttal rights. It gives them some information there, and it is what it is. There are 100 tickets available for 100 rebuttals. I doubt that we're going to get that, but it is what it is. In order to ensure capacity and substantive rebuttals, we have the fee, and also helps towards the publishing of the book. So that's all that's involved with that. So those of you that want to have that, or know someone who would be perfect to provide a rebuttal to this most pivotal information that's really going to change the discussion from October 28th and beyond, then you need to make them aware of this. So again, some other things that we'll be talking about are a mini presentation. This thing starts at 8 o'clock. Be there by 8:15 through 9 o'clock. We'll be discussing the main points. I'm not going to waste time making a lot of talk. You guys got to get ready to hit the road and run. That means your pencils and paper ready. Well, it should be pens. But we're going to give you some rock solid facts. Okay, we're talking science. We're talking, academic base material. Okay, so that's what we're going to be showing you. At 9:15, I'm hitting the road running, and by 9 o'clock, I expect to be over with the main points. Okay, there's no discussion. I'm just making the presentation. You're going to, again, these are unrefutable facts, okay, that give the atheist the win. You will see that you have a win. The Christian, though, will see that they need to make a change. Okay, they have to change what they're doing, because they're making a very big mistake. Okay, so that's, and you got some theist friends that you've been trying to convince. Well, bring them, because I'm going to make the case for you. Free admission, so you have no reason not to bring them in. They have to register. We cannot entertain walk-ins, and there's no place for you to walk them in unless you have a ticket and they have a ticket. So that is very key. But for the theists, you gotta understand there is something here that you guys need to know, because things are changing and you need to be up to date on what's happening here. Okay, so don't be afraid, Christian. I'm a minister. Don't worry. I gotcha. Okay? But everyone really needs to attend this. And then at 9:15 to 10 p.m., we're going to have a presentation of mine, again, of our 343 initiative, the solution to hunger, poverty, and homelessness. Okay, so that is something that every atheist and theist should also be involved with. So, and know about it, because we have the solution. It's simple. Okay, so if you want to prove your point, prove your side right, then 343 initiative is something that everyone should be working on. After that, at 10:15 through 11, I will have a Q&A by paper note submission. Now, what's going to happen in that paper note submission is that it will be filtered out, the common questions and questions or statements that are irrelevant to the points presented during the seminar will not be included. And we're not going to have duplicates either. I'm only going to filter out the significant questions that are directly derived from the presentation. And so that is things that I will entertain at the seminar, because we don't have all night. Now, I will keep all your questions. If you have an email or something, or even, no, we don't have to dispense with that email business. Simply, I'll take all the questions and I'll make a video answering all the questions, except for duplicates, of course. I will do that after the event, during the week, and we'll update everyone who gave us an email, or at the event I'll let you know where I will be uploading the answers to your questions, most probably at the TSPCI YouTube channel. So I'll probably upload it to that, most likely. And then I will upload those, okay? And again, the rebuttal ticket holders have up until the end of the year, until December the 30th, 31st, to send in their rebuttal. Rebuttals will be edited for sake of space, especially if there's 100 of you all crazy enough to try to rebut this. But they will. You'll have up to then to do that, and we also reserve the right to edit for sake of space, all right, to give everyone a fair amount of space, but equal, right, because everyone's paying the same amount. So we want to have everyone pay, listen, you got to be able to rebut in a decent amount of size, right, of space. There's no need to have so much verbiage to refute a point. Either it's refuted or it isn't. We don't have to pack in as much fluff as possible, as if the weight of the argument in terms of the verbiage, the word count, goes towards credibility. It doesn't, right? So we'll edit out, but we will not edit out at your strong points. Like I said, your strongest points are helpful for this engagement and for this debate and for the discovery and knowledge of the truth. So we are not in the business of trying to censor or trying to eliminate what you say. It's very important that you have your statements are the points are preserved. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so that's all for this announcement. Octubre 28, el mundo y la realidad de ateísmo va a cambiar para siempre. asiste a esta reunión en Nueva York o por virtual por su computadora. La entrada es gratis. Tenemos pues una oportunidad en el bbi.eventcube.io para que alguien de capacidad y habilidad financiera contribuye refutación para en el libro que se va a hacer de este seminario, de estos puntos. Nosotros, como somos transparentes, no tememos las refutaciones, porque todo nuestro propósito es la búsqueda de la verdad. Así que no tememos las refutaciones y lo estamos haciendo petición por ello a través de esta oferta. También en este sitio donde puedes comprar, lo único que se está vendiendo en términos de boletos son las 100 boletos para refutar nuestra posición presentada en esta reunión. Así que hay que reservarla antes de la fecha de esta reunión. Y entonces aparecerás en el libro su refutación, su nombre, etcétera, en el libro. Le vamos a dar como reconocimiento de la refutación, como usted lo contribuye con entendiblemente con el hecho de que tenemos que editar para espacio para que todos los que quieren refutar pueden hacerlo, y por igual, porque todos van a contribuir la misma cantidad por igual. Ok, so that's the amount. Octubre 28, reserva, puede ir a eventbrite.com. Eventbrite.com also has us there. Go look for New York City, look for Adventism Moving Beyond, or Adventism Must Move Beyond. Search for it on Eventbrite, and you will have only the free tickets there. In bbi.eventcube.io, you have both the free tickets plus you have the rebuttal tickets at a cost. Okay, so that will only be found at eventcube.io. Así que para refutarnos solamente se encuentra en eventcube.io. Okay, y para solo asistir en cualquiera de las dos plataformas pueden conseguir los boletos gratis. No estamos cobrando. Ahora, ¿dónde lo vamos a tener? Depende en cuántas personas registran y si hay dinero o no para un lugar, porque ustedes son ateos, no, ustedes tienen lógica, pues es lógico que yo estoy dando gratis ticket, deben de contribuir para el espacio, para este evento, si se desean, si no, lo mismo, right? Ok, y aquellos que no pueden asistir, no van a estar en Nueva York, están todavía en New Zealand, donde quiera que estén, pueden asistir virtualmente. Registra y recibirás el enlace para verlo virtualmente, quizás en YouTube en vivo. Alright, so eso es todo lo que hay. Recuerda, si no reservan el boleto de refutación, no pueden refutarme en el libro. Ok, so recuerde eso. No espera hasta el seminario para que entonces yo quiero refutar ese libro. No espere. Pero tenga capacidad. Usted necesita tener capacidad aquí y también aquí, porque ese boleto no es gratis. Ese boleto cuesta. Alright. Now, Today, we'll thank you for that, being patient with my announcement because I gotta blow the trumpet, right? Atheism, moving beyond. Every Christian should be there, and every atheist should be there. You won't, but those who do will be far ahead of the game, moving forward on both sides. Así que no todo el mundo va a querer asistir a este seminario de impacto, pero los que hacen así, los que asisten en los dos campos van a estar adelantados al juego, a este debate enseguida e inmediatamente, porque esto cambia a octubre 28. El ateísmo es muerta. Ustedes ganaron, ustedes ganan, pero a la misma vez se murieron. Yo les voy a enseñar por qué en este día. Y los cristianos, ustedes tienen que aprender una cosa que ustedes no le están enseñando y no lo está haciendo bien. Los apologéticos allá están todos haciendo algo muy errada y están forjando este asunto de ese ateísmo que ya está muerta, pero ustedes lo están manteniendo en un tanque de oxígeno. Ustedes deben dejar de hacerlo. So Christians are giving atheists oxygen. Actually, atheism had to die a long time. It shouldn't have started. And this is what we're going to talk about in this conforme a nuestra perspectiva. No, 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 no. That's what's messed this whole thing up since the beginning. Is imposing human perspective on God. That's absolutely ridiculous. And it's also fueled atheism. También eso ha dado gasolina, ha dado energía, potencia a la perspectiva ateo. Porque de todo modo la religión judeo-cristiana pues aparecen religiones humanas. Y para ser justo hay que admitirlo. Porque la perspectiva que se le está elaborando y ¿cómo se dice? Desarrollando es de la perspectiva humana. Y no estamos dejando o permitiendo, no estamos proveyendo espacio intelectual o espiritual. ¿Qué quiere decir espiritual? Vamos a hablar de que Dios sea Dios, lo que Él es, sin nuestra perspectiva influenciando cómo Dios tiene que ser. So we have to be able to rise above this human perspective and allow God to be God, who He is and what He is, without our religious perspective shaping it and forcing Him in a way. He's not forced by us, but we insist on seeing Him and talking about Him within the constraints of our religious thought process. So nosotros insistimos en hablar de Dios entre el contexto de nuestros pensamientos y procesos religiosos. Y por eso cada persona de cada diversa creencia habla y ve a Dios desde la perspectiva de sus respectivos denominaciones. Y relacionan con Dios de esa manera, porque ustedes insisten en ver a Dios y bregar con Dios de la forma que le han enseñado. Because this issue is that that's why you have all these different churches and religious ideas, and each of these religious faithful in adherents see, view, speak of, relate to others about their God or about the God in different ways. And you ask, how can it be? It's because they are constraining their own relationship with God within the scope of their learned religious thinking. So, entonces solo bregan con Dios de acuerdo a su modo religioso. ¿Cómo puede ser? How can that be? If there's a God, why is it that everyone sees and deals with Him in a different way? And why does He allow it? Because simply the Bible says that according to your faith, it shall be done. So what does that mean? La Biblia dice que de acuerdo a su fe será hecho. So, entonces, ¿qué quiere decir eso? Si yo tengo fe que Dios puede llenar el vaso de agua, entonces en mi religión Dios llena esto de agua. Porque esa es la creencia, así yo relato con Dios en mi religión. El otro no cree eso. El otro cree que Dios llena de hielo y después se derrite a agua. Entonces, en la religión de ese otro, Dios llena su copa de hielo y se vuelve en agua, y entonces pues los dos tenemos lo mismo, los dos servimos a Dios, el único Dios que hay, pero vemos el Dios de diversas formas. So each of us are seeing God differently yet it's the same God. Then you have the different religions, the different creeds, yet it's the same God. Atheists wonders, well, what is it? Is it this God or that God? Or what God is it? And the answer to that is there is only one God. Even the Jew will tell you. Aún el judío te dirá que solo hay un Dios. The Judeo-Christian foundation is that there is only one God. Now, some of them think it's a trinity, others think it's two, and others say it's one. All right? But it is the same one at the end of the day. Al fin del día, uno dice Trinidad, otro dice binaridad, y el otro dice unidad, pero al fin del día es el mismo Dios de la Biblia. Right? So, and in fact, so you have a lot of these discussions, apologetics, debates between these different religious ideas, and we all just talk about the same God. It's just really, it gets silly because people are not understanding that you can see God in different perspectives. The whole idea of perspective is that we don't all have the same one. And a mountain looks different on different sides that you look at it. And yet it's the same mountain. That's the thing. People need to get with it. You know, the lack of understanding is amazing in this time and age in society. La falta de entendimiento en esta edad de sociedad, en el desarrollo de la civilización humana es increíble. Pero hay tanta ignorancia, es que bien ignorantes es la sociedad en su totalidad. Hay estrellas de brillantes, de genios, pero lo demás es negro, como oscuridad, como usted ve en los cielos. Oscuro, inteligente, mira qué inteligente, mira inteligencia, es inteligente, mira ahí. ¿Ve? Eso es la sociedad. Lo demás está negro, en tinieblas, porque son ignorantes. Right? Así que and the truth of it is like the nighttime sky. Right? We have intelligent people in society. You have one star there, another. You can point at it. Look at this guy's one. Look, that one. And there's a lot of stars in the sky. But more than the stars in the sky is the amount of darkness. So that the stars are in a sea of ignorance. In other words, the light is in a sea of darkness. And that's where everyone else is at. So we have to understand that this is, and then look at that as a panorama of religion. That's sad. You know, it really is sad. Right. Okay. So, cuando miramos a la historia ahora del ateísmo, vamos a ver el efecto de la falta de Israel. Last week we started dealing with the issue of atheism, and we discovered that atheism, and we'll go to the screen, we discovered that atheism has its basic root, its basic beginning in the denial or the rejection of specifically the God of the Bible. Now, many atheists will tell you, no, we don't believe in any gods. But that was a later development. We're talking about the history here. So we got to go to the history. What was the first instinct? What was the first reason for atheism? Usted tiene que ver primeramente la razón primaria para el ateísmo. ¿Cuál era? No era que era contra todos los dioses, eso fue después. Originalmente el ateísmo empezó con negación del Dios de la Biblia, punto. All right? So atheism was first used to describe a self-avowed belief in late 18th century Europe, especially denoting disbelief in the monotheistic Abrahamic God. So, tiene su origen, vamos a ver esto en español. We'll see this in Spanish. If we could have, we went away from it, so let's go again. Describen una creencia autoconfesada en la Europa de finales del siglo XVIII que denota específicamente incredulidad en el Dios monoteísta abrahámico. Alright, so el ateísmo es directamente contrario al Dios de la Biblia. So we have to understand and admit that atheism originated as a direct negation of the God of the Bible. Point blank. Everybody likes to start obfuscating the main point. But this is it. It's undeniable. Usted no puede negar estos son datos. These are facts. You don't deny the facts now. See, but you see a lot of the hypocrisy in atheists. That's why you guys are in a religion, because you're doing the same thing religious folks do. You gotta admit it. You're showing the same type of fruit because you're in the same soup. You're the same tree. Okay, you're just doing something else, but you're the same tree. Aquí tú eres el mismo árbol, está haciendo lo mismo que los creyentes, solo que está concluyendo diferentemente, pero es la misma cosa. So, again, tiene que admitir que su posición es contrario al Dios de la Biblia. And that's really all that matters. That's really where it all begins. All the other discussions, that you guys have, even posits, todas las demás discusiones que tienen, aún posiciones que utilizan como, y pruébame que Superman existe, y pruébanos que Thor no es el verdadero Dios. Prove to us that Superman doesn't exist. And why isn't Thor our God? Why can't we believe in Thor? All of those, they're superficial argumentations based to and created actually to deny the fact that atheism was coined to negate the God of the Bible, period. So, así que todas esas otras argumentaciones son superfluosas, son frivolosas, porque realmente son ofuscantes al dato, a la realidad de que el ateísmo fue fundada como una refutación, una negación al Dios de la Biblia, específicamente. So specifically, it is against the God of the Bible. Okay, so that's the evidence. That's the history. It can't be denied. So let's not get into any more denials here. Now, we did go through this, that in the East, a contemplative life not centered on the idea of deities began in the 6th century before the Christian era. So, aprendimos aquí, yo creo que lo expliqué la semana pasada también, que en 600 años antes de Cristo, ya estaban estableciendo religiones no basadas sobre una deidad, sino sobre morales, sobre otras enseñanzas sabios, pero sin dependencia de o enfocamiento en una deidad. So we see that 600 years before Christ, there is the development of religions that are not does not involve a deity. Simply words of wisdom, morals of life, of living, ethical living. These were already becoming developed in other areas as early as 600 years, at least in this Indian foci that we are now in, Indian philosophy. 600 years before Christ, and before the Christian era. Deities are not seen as necessary to the salvific goal of the early Buddhist tradition. Así que en lo que es lo budista, la salvación, las deidades no se consideran necesarias para el objetivo salvífico de la antigua tradición budista, aunque después los católicos, los misioneros, empezaron a tratar de unir el budismo con la fe cristiana, porque tienen muchas similaridades, right? So again, that was just bringing in the Christian faith and mixing it with Buddhism became a later development. Especially the Catholic experience and toolkit, if you will, of taking what people already believe and molding it and adapting it into the Christian faith. The Buddhist faith was really just was greatly, to a large degree, just like Christianity. So it wasn't a hard or far-fetched thing to do, and even if it wasn't the attempt to mix the two together, it's a natural thing to happen. Aunque los misioneros católicos o otros cristianos no trataron de unir el budismo con la fe cristiana, es tan similar que aún los que oyen la fe cristiana, que eran budistas, hubieran mezclado de todos modos. Como no, lo mismo pasó con Israel y las cosas de Egipto. You know, you can't say that just because of the Christian missionary and that the Christian missionary had brought these two things together. It didn't have to be. Simply by preaching the gospel in a Buddhist country, those who would hear the gospel would find great similarity with Buddhism. Simply bringing in now a deity where the Buddhists had no deity, and showing the Christ as the messenger, which in their religion, well, Buddha was the messenger, and so it's an easy thing for people to bring and meld it together. You don't need a Catholic priest to do it for them. This would have been a development in either case, because people tend to take what they already know and add to it, as opposed to throwing out everything they know and get a new knowledge, right? They don't do that. They adapt it. Now, the same thing happened with Israel. Lo mismo pasó con Israel. God takes them out of Egypt and then brings them the true religion, so to speak. But what happens? What is it that Israel's always doing? It's always thinking about the old religion. So todo Israel también tenía en la cabeza la religión egipcia, porque eso es lo que tenían en su cabeza. No era que Dios les sacó la religión egipcia de la cabeza. As a matter of fact, lo reforzó trayendo los corderos, el cabro, el becerro. Esos son símbolos animales representativos de deidad en Egipto. No es como Dios entonces trajo otro tipo de animal, no. Así que vemos que Israel solo podía adaptar lo que Dios decía con lo de Egipto, que ya era preexistente, preestablecido en sus mentes y corazones. So we see that Israel can only adapt these things, can only adapt what God said to the Egyptian religious thinking, because that was the thinking of the day. And so that they could only adapt. They could not exchange it. How could they have exchanged it? Not simply by listening to God, because they had to hear it in a context. How can you come from Egypt, where they worshiped the bulls, and the bulls were a personification of their god, and how can you come and see God ask for a bull and not think of Egypt? That was going to be automatic. Okay, so that's, again, I think people are not really understanding what the significance of what God was doing with Israel really is. All right, but these are the things that you need to understand. That things are not happening in a vacuum. Atheism did not form in a vacuum. It formed as a reaction to something else. And for it to happen, like in science, there had to be space for it to happen, right? There has to be something for it to grow into or out of. So these are the things that we have to understand. Now, there is a fundamental incompatibility between the notion of God and the basic Buddhist principles, at least in some interpretations. So in some interpretations, they are, Buddhism doesn't allow for deities, but that's only in some interpretations. Some Buddhist philosophers assert that belief in an eternal creator God is a distraction from the central task of the religious life. So algunos de los filósofos budistas dicen que el Dios creador eterno es una distracción de la tarea central de la vida religiosa. Okay, so you guys don't see that on your screen, sorry. Perdón que no lo vieron en su pantalla. So vamos a leer esto otra vez. Let's get that going on again. They didn't see it on the screen. El Dios creador eterno es una distracción de la tarea central de la vida religiosa. All right, so again, going away from God. Now, why are these Indians, right, at this time, pointing away from God? Now, before then, right, what did they have? They had the very many polytheistic gods. Antes de esto, ¿qué tenían los indios? Varios dioses. Again, we're dealing with the world, not dealing with the God of the Bible in terms of a religious focus. So, no estamos bregando aquí con un mundo que tiene el Dios de la Biblia como su enfoque. No, estos son naciones que no tienen el enfoque del Dios de la Biblia, sino que su enfoque son los dioses. Pues ya para 600 años antes de Cristo ya están, como se dice, ya cansados de la noción de un Dios o cualquier deidad. So we see that there is a tiring of the notion of deities by this 600 years before Christ, right? But not against the deity of in other words, not against the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is still not had not been introduced here
at least not to a religious point. Not like the Jewish God, right? The Jews were not preaching Yahweh all over the world. No, they weren't doing that. So, in the absence of that, these things are happening in the absence. Estas son cosas que están desarrollando en la ausencia de un Dios de la Biblia. Now, why is that? Well, the number one reason is that Israel isn't here, right? La número una razón que esto sucedió es porque Israel no está presente. Israel está disperso. Israel no ocupó su posición. Israel did not occupy its role and position as a holy nation to teach all the other nations about the God of the Bible. So that is the missing ingredient. All of these guys, all of these nations are still holding on for whatever gas and fuel it has on the notions of deities, which we all know have been slowly eroding away because it was the ancient science. That was the space for the deities. El espacio de las deidades fue el falta de conocimiento, la falta de ciencia. No sabían cómo trabajaba el sol, ni qué era el sol, la luna, las estrellas, los vientos, la tempestad, el trueno, el relámpago, el río, la primavera, el otoño, la siega, la cosecha, todas esas cosas, y los animales, todas esas cosas representaban misterio. All of these natural things, sun, moon, light, day, the skies, the earth, the Nile, all of these things, animals of different types, beasts, strong animal, thunder, lightning, all of these things were the cause of mystery for early man. And because they did not know what these things were, could not explain what but yet their lives were totally impacted and disrupted by these forces. Well, early man had no other way to reason it except that these must be gods. That's it. It's simple. Así que el hombre primitivo, viendo todos estos elementos, animales, relámpagos, truenos, tempestades, sol, luna, eclipsos y todas estas diferentes cosas que impactaban sus vidas, vida y muerte, animales que le mataban, todos dependían en estas cosas que tenían que razonarlo de una forma. El hombre trata de razonar las cosas. Man has to try to reason things. And so in this early time when there's no science, there's no real science, science started. In other words, what is science? It's understanding or bringing understanding to the world around us. That's what religion was. When an atheist says today, I believe in science, well, you're doing no better than the polytheists of ancient time, because that's what they did. They believed in science, in whatever science they had. It just so happens that that level of science you and I know of as myth and religion today. That's all. That was what they believed in. And, and there's a lot to be said about believing in science today, therefore, because obviously, to the degree of knowledge we have, you are either better or not as much better than they were back then. So who's still the polytheist here? You guys had to think what you're doing. You got to be very careful. Hay que tener mucho cuidado porque El ateo de hoy está haciendo lo mismo que hizo el hombre antiguo del ayer, que depende en ciencia, que confía en la ciencia. En aquel entonces la ciencia era el dios Baal, era el dios del sol, el dios de la luna, el dios del Nilo, del río, el dios de la fertilidad. Eso era la ciencia de aquel entonces. El que confía en la ciencia hoy día es igualmente como los politeístas de la antigüedad. Es la misma esfuerzo, es la misma mirada, ¿no? Lo único que tenemos información hoy, hay conocimiento. So the difference between the polytheists of yesteryear and the scientifically based atheists of today is simply that there is more knowledge today. So your faith is more knowledgeable, but it still is a faith and belief in nature, right? As opposed to that the only God that makes the claim to be, in fact, the God who created the heavens and the earth. Así que todo esto son cosas que demuestra la similaridad o similitud entre el politeísta de ayer y el ateo de hoy, que depende en la ciencia, que confía en la ciencia, contra la declaración del único Dios que dice que es el creador de los cielos y la tierra, que es el Dios de la Biblia. Eso es lo que tenemos que reconocer. El hecho que el ateísmo, después, como hemos leído, es una negación al Dios de la Biblia, ese mismo Dios, pues es relevante y revelador. So the fact that atheism, then, as we have seen, is a direct confrontation and negation of that same God, the God of the Bible, the only one that claims to be the creator of the heavens and the earth. It's relevant and revealing in light of the fact of the similarity between the polytheists of ancient times and the atheists of today, because they're both doing the same thing. You're both looking at the same things and not the God of the Bible. So that's the issue. So los dos están mirando, you're looking in the same direction. You're looking at the sun. You say, that I believe in that. I believe in the science. That is the sun and the moon and the stars. And they believed in the science, which wasn't much, of the sun, the moon, and the stars. There's no difference between y'all. Except that today your religion has more information with it. But your direction is still the same as theirs. So así la dirección, and you criticize. The funny thing is, you're criticizing your antecedents, your ancestors, who formulated the basic premise for atheism back in the day. You're criticizing them. It's cute. But it's the typical child, criticizing the parents. I know more. They're dumb. They birthed you. Así que, tú sabes, son como los hijos que critican los padres. Oh, yo sé más que mamá y papá siempre dicen esto, yo sé más que ellos. Yeah, right? Es lo mismo, pero ellos te dieron luz, bruto. Tú eres igual. All right. So, these are the things that, we have to look at. Let's continue. Now, it says here the foundational text for the Mimamsa school is the Purva Mimamsa Sutras of Jaimini. I don't know how to pronounce these things. Hopefully I did right. 3rd to 1st century BC. The school reached its height at circa 700 CE, Christian era, and for some time in the early Middle Ages exerted near dominant influence on learned Hindu thought. Again, we're talking about 2,000 years that Israel learned thought should have been dominant in the world. Estamos hablando aquí de un tiempo, una escuela que se desarrolló, que formó, se hizo dominante hasta los 700 años después de Cristo, en la era cristiana. Estamos hablando de casi 1000 años entre cuando empezó, 600 años antes de la era cristiana, ahora hasta 700 en su sumo, 700 años después, o sea, en la era cristiana, son 1000 años. Más, son 1300 años. We're talking about 1,300 years. Politeístas hubiera sido ya muchos años atrás muertos ya, eliminados de la conversación. El mundo todo estuviese hablando del Dios de la Biblia, de Jehová, el Dios de la Biblia, el Dios de Israel, y eso es todo, porque todos los demás dioses hubieran sido eliminadas. All the other gods would have been eliminated by this time. So the Hindus wouldn't have been doing anything else except learning about the God of the Bible. There wouldn't have been any issue where science is eroding and corrosive to previous polytheistic thoughts. And now we have to replace it with something. Let's have the goodness of it, the good advice, the wise sayings, and don't all talk about God, because we have science. We don't need gods. And they're right. You're right. Exactamente. No necesitan de dioses cuando hay ciencia, porque los dioses que ellos creían era ciencia con falta de conocimiento. That's all. The religion was science without the knowledge. That's all. It was the scientific mind without the knowledge. That's what creates religion. Lo que creó religión era la mente científica del hombre que sin conocimientos. Y eso es todo, eso es religión. La mente científica preguntando por qué y cómo, pero sin conocimiento crea religión. So the scientific mind that says how and why without knowledge creates religion to fill in the lack of knowledge. We don't know. This is a God, there's a God, a power, there's a force, there's an energy here. It must be God. Because if this doesn't work, we're dead. There must be a God that controls it. We see that sometimes let's pray a bit. Let's pray to this God. Let's sacrifice to this God and see if it'll start to rain. And you know what? Sometimes it started to rain. There must be something here. Science. That's it. It's a done deal. Así que, esto de tratar, esperando, vamos a sacrificar a ver si el Dios de esto pues nos ayude y hace llover sobre la tierra. Vamos a sacrificar, vamos a hacer un danza, un baile, vamos a ofrendarle, vamos a adorarle. Y ¿sabes qué? Y a veces empezaba a llover. ¿Y qué decimos? Dios aceptó nuestra ofrenda, porque a veces no lo acepta y no llueve, ¿verdad? Tú ves que es tan fácil que una religión se desarrolla así cuando hay falta de ciencia, falta de conocimiento. La mente científica siempre hay. So the scientific mind was always there. The knowledge wasn't. And the conclusions therefore became polytheism. That's all. It's a result of a scientific mind without the knowledge. That's all. Así que the minds are the same. It's just that if there's a lack of knowledge, an ability to gain the knowledge, but the insistence, you see, the insistence that we are right, man, God, there's a God. This is a God who accepts or doesn't accept this offering that we made. Because like human beings, we if somebody gives us something, can you do this for me? Here, I give you this. And, we can decide to do it or not. The gods were always human, emotional, human people, right? Los dioses siempre eran humanos, siempre. A veces cogían la ofrenda y a veces no cogían la ofrenda, pero no hacían nada como seres humanos. A su capricho, pues esos son Dios. Right? That's it. Eso es la mentalidad del hombre y es científico. Hasta que seguía buscando y poco a poco la enseñanza iba rellenando el lugar de que era religioso. So slowly but surely the facts, scientific fact began filling in for the religious beliefs. And so once you get to a certain threshold, certain people more than others or less than others, they get ready to break away from these theistic dependencies. But most of them were without the knowledge of the God of the Bible and without the teachings of a holy nation, a kingdom of priests, which would have been and should have been Israel. So, en todo esto que hemos estado platicando hoy, tenemos que entender que todo fue desarrollado en la ausencia de un Israel, nación santa, que es nación que enseña, y el reino de sacerdotes, igualmente. Enseñan porque son sacerdotes, o sea, son expertos en Dios y los hombres, en la relación entre Dios y las verdades entre Dios y el hombre. ¿Ve? Sin esa enseñanza, el hombre solo tuvo su falta de conocimiento hasta que lo reemplazó, que era religión politeísta, hasta que lo reemplazó con conocimiento científico. Entonces, ya que hay conocimiento científico, when that knowledge or lack of knowledge is replaced with scientific knowledge now, the need for theistic attributions are eliminated, are reduced. Okay? So, that is the reality of what is happening. Now, it's not in regard, at least not openly, in regard to the God of the Bible. Entonces no está en referencia al Dios de la Biblia, sino no abiertamente. Okay, y yo digo eso por una razón. Because the thing is this, and this is I want you guys to understand this. God was always the God who created the heavens and the earth. That's the issue. The God behind the thunder, and I say that on purpose so you guys that know about the gods and the polytheists and all the gods and their powers. The God of thunder was always the God who created the heavens and the earth. The God of the Nile, the God of the spring, the God of fertility, the God of this and of that, the sun, the moon, all of them were actually the one and only God of the Bible. That's what you guys got to understand. They had no understanding of who each of those gods were. They named them gods for ignorance. But in fact, they weren't gods. Everything was made by the God of the Bible. There's always the God of the Bible. So, and God has His creation. He loved His creation. Dios amó su creación. Siempre era el Dios de la Biblia. Sí, adoraban a Baal, adoraban a la luna, adoraban al río Nilo. Estaban pidiendo misericordia del becerro, de del otro, bla, bla, bla. Todos eran, yo sé que muchos dicen que eran demonios y cosas así. Todos eran el Dios de la Biblia, porque solamente hay un Dios. Y si oraron por misericordia a cualquiera, y ocurrió la lluvia y vino, los salvó a todos, no era más nadie que el Dios de la Biblia. Hay muchos cristianos ignorantes lo atribuyen al demonio, que estos dios falsos eran demonios, que esto otro, bla, bla, bla. No quiere decir que no había demonio envuelto en la lucha. O sea, para tomar el crédito para ello, confundir la gente. We're not saying that the demons and the devil did not try to confuse humanity and to take the credit away from God. Obviously, that in a spiritual sense is always true. But the devil does not control the thunder in the sky. It's just simply, you guys got to understand this. The devil does not control, all his demons do not control the forces of nature. And to the extent that these things were manifest, these are things that God has power over. And God's angels have power over. See? So no matter what, it is always the God of the Bible. So siempre es el Dios de la Biblia, porque solo Dios tiene el poder para hacer cuanta cosa que hay que hacer. Dios permite que el demonio o el diablo haga esto o lo otro. Recuerda que el diablo pidió permiso primero. So hay cosas que Dios ha permitido, pero no vamos a otorgar todo al demonio y al diablo. No. So we cannot attribute wholesale to devils and to the demons, the workings of certain miracles and things, answers to prayers that many of these polytheists had and made and occurred. You can't just wholesale say, oh, it's all demons and that's all that Christians do, and they're wrong. You're wrong. Simply wrong. God has mercy on his creatures. Dios tiene misericordia sobre sus criaturas. Y Dios es el que determina. And even the devil asked God, the devil asked God to afflict Job. Remember that. So it's not that the devil who afflicted Job? Yeah, the devil did, but God allowed it. You have to understand that because God has his purposes. Right? Dios tiene su propósito. Dios permitió que el diablo, entonces, ¿de quién es? ¿Quién está haciendo? ¿Entienden lo que estoy diciendo? So, at the end of the day, who is doing what? Under whose authority is it being done? So, this is really the question. So, yeah, demon or devil can do X, Y, Z, but under whose authority? Debajo de la autoridad de quién está actuando el demonio o el diablo. Pero no, nadie va a decir que el diablo no está debajo de la autoridad de Dios. ¿Quién va a decir eso? See that? So no one can say that the devil is working without the authority or outside the authority of God. He's defeated, of course. Everything he does is under the authority, the authorization of God. It's within the plan of God. God is using them. That's it. Dios lo está usando. So at the end of the day, Dios hace lo que él quiere. At the end of the day, he does what he wants to do. All right. So now, let's get into... I'm looking for more information here. Let's look at it on the screen. Running out of time as usual. Okay, again, the thing here was the understanding of Indian philosophies. Again, to incorporate, the idea was to incorporate some of these in the evangelistic message that was brought by these Catholics and other evangelical efforts. Here it said the Jesuit Roberto de Novilli wrote in 1613 that the Logaidas, Locayaris, hold the view that the elements themselves are God. This is another a philosophy that everything is a God in and of itself. which is like the complete opposite of what polytheism was, in the sense that everything was controlled or under the authority of a God. Here, that everything is a God. In other words, in plain English, that all of this is science, and because we don't understand it, it is a God. Basically, what this is showing you is the problem or the resolution, the intellectual resolution of the lack of knowledge. Depending on the level of knowledge, this was the way it was resolved. It either became a God, or it is a God, or controlled by a God, or it is itself a God. It all ends up being a God because of the lack of knowledge. Entonces, estos son en realidad que tú estás viendo aquí, los diferentes modos que el hombre razonó su falta de entendimiento. O sea que las cosas eran controladas por un dios o por varios dioses directamente a los elementos que eran, y en este caso el elemento en sí era Dios, era un dios en sí. Okay, and so here it says, rather than proclaiming a Carvaca Renaissance in Akbar's court, it would be safer to suggest that the ancient school of materialism never went away. So it's an ancient school, it's an ancient school of thought. Esto es una cosa antigua, lo que está diciendo aquí. Está refiriéndose a estas filosofías que empezó a florecer o a subir, a subir, y que era nada menos que lo mismo materialismo, o sea, fe o creencia en la materia de la antigüedad. Así mismo con todo lo que es el politeísmo, estamos hablando del mismo animal. And I like that it talks about this a little bit, because what it's showing you is that mentality of things. Like we have the saying today, mind over matter, right? So in this sense that the issue was matter itself is the issue. Even in the statement mind over matter, en el dicho en mente sobre la materia, o lo material, señala el mismo sentir. O sea que lo material es todo aquí es materia. Y entonces que la fe o las religiones se desarrollaron en relación a nuestro entendimiento de lo material. Eso es lo que es la misma cosa. So it's the same type of thing. And what else can it be? Obviously, right? This is our life. This is our existence. So then obviously everything has to be based on it, on our is. What is? So basically it's the same question, the same thing over again. Different shapes and forms, but it is the same thing. Now talking about Buddhism. Buddhism is sometimes described as non-theistic because of the absence of a creator God, right? El budismo es pensado ser no teísta porque, sí, descrito como no teísta debido a la ausencia de un Dios creador. Now, there are many things, and when people say, well, yeah, how come, why can't Superman be God? You know, the point is that Superman is never a God, is never the creator God. The whole point is that the creator God is the one, is declared in the Bible, and is the God of the Bible. El Dios creador está descrito en la Biblia. Right? Aquí no tiene, en el budismo no tiene un creador, un Dios creador. But that can be too simplistic a view. The non-adherence to the notion of the supreme deity or prime mover is seen by many as the key distinction between Buddhism and other religions. While Buddhist traditions do not deny the existence of supernatural beings, It does not ascribe powers. So what are supernatural beings here? Again, lack of science. So the Buddhist faith also suffers. It's still developed early enough, even though what they did was reduce their God still to supernatural beings. But still, that space of lack of knowledge was still replaced by a supernatural being, right? See, don't you see this? It's very clear. Es muy claro aquí. El espacio, aunque los budas no creen en un Dios creador, pero entonces los dioses que antes tenían y son eliminados ahora, son reducidos a ser seres sobrenaturales. No son dioses, pero son seres sobrenaturales que tienen poderes, right? Like Superman. That's right. In the typical Western sense for creation, salvation, or judgment to the gods, however, praying to enlightened deities is sometimes seen as leading to some degree of spiritual merit. En otras palabras, so they're saying, okay, so we ascribe to a super state without having to go and talk about a god. Basically what's happening. Buddhists accept the existence of beings in higher realms, known as devas, but they, like humans, are said to be suffering in samsara, and not particularly wiser than we are, not particularly. In fact, the Buddha is often portrayed as a teacher of the deities and superior to them. Despite this, they have some enlightened devas in the path of Buddhahood. Now, you can see here that this is really just religious gobbledygook. In fact, the Buddha is often portrayed as a teacher of the deities. But why? ¿Por qué la Buda se demuestra, se le atribuye como maestro de los deidades? Porque el hecho de la Buda era de quitar, eliminar las otras deidades de la conciencia de su gente. It's like what Muhammad did for the Arabs nations, removing all their false gods and replacing them with Allah. Muhammad did the same thing. Here, Buddha is the teacher now of those deities. Oh, you believe in that deity? Well, Buddha is the teacher of that deity. So in other words, it's trying to transfer the faith in these deities to a central Buddha, a central messenger and teacher. So es transfiriendo esta enseñanza a un maestro principal o central. Right? So this is a good point to now go and look at Israel, because when Israel was released from Egypt, cuando Israel fue sacado de Egipto, Israel tenía una gran oportunidad. Israel was afforded a great opportunity. That opportunity was to become the teacher of all the other nations. Esa fue de ser el maestro a todas las demás naciones. Pero no solamente el maestro en la ciencia. But it wasn't just a teacher of science. Now, what do you say? Excuse me. How is Israel teacher of science? ¿Cómo es que Israel estaba supuesto ser un maestro de la ciencia? Well, what do you think we're talking about? What do you think the Bible is talking about? ¿Qué crees tú que está hablando la Biblia? See, the world, remember why there was polytheism in the world. Recuerda por qué había politeísmo en el mundo. Por la falta de conocimiento. It was because of the lack of knowledge. And on top of that, the lack of true knowledge, the truth, and the knowledge of the truth. Arriba de la falta de conocimiento que tenía la humanidad, había la falta del conocimiento de la verdad. You see? Now, go to the Bible. Ahora vamos a la Biblia. ¿Qué encontramos ahí del conocimiento? What do we find in the Bible about the knowledge? Well, we find something interesting. Encontramos algo interesante. Y es el árbol del conocimiento del bien y del mal. So we find the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge. You know, you have to understand that this whole mess, this whole issue, this whole debate, it's an issue of knowledge. It isn't an issue of religion. Esto no es una cosa de religión. Religion is not an eternal issue. La religión no es un asunto eterno. El conocimiento es. Knowledge is an issue of eternity. Not religion, knowledge. So this whole issue, when you're reading the Bible and you are thinking in a religious frame, you are not understanding the Bible. Okay? You are going to misunderstand what's going on in the Bible. You can read it and understand it religiously, in a religious frame of mind. I'm not saying that you're not understanding it. I don't understand. No, you will understand it in a religious frame of mind. But you are not understanding what is actually going on. Pero lo que pasa es que cuando tú lees la Biblia con la mentalidad religiosa, usted va a entender la Biblia religiosamente. Pero eso no es lo que está en la realidad pasando en la Biblia. Así que la realidad del contexto bíblico tú no lo vas a entender. Tú no lo vas a tener porque lo que tú estás viendo es solamente lo religioso y además que eso lo está viendo en el punto de vista de su creencia. So you're not only looking at it in a religious frame of mind, but you're also looking at it within the perspective and the bias of your religious beliefs. This is why every church in the world has a different religious teaching on the same Bible. Y es la razón que cada iglesia, cada denominación tiene diferentes perspectivas religiosas con la misma Biblia. Es una Biblia, pero tiene diferentes perspectivas. Es el mismo Dios, pero tiene diferentes perspectivas. ¿Por qué? Porque todos están viendo a Dios y a la Biblia de acuerdo a las gafas de su creencia religiosa. Because each one is looking at the Bible, looking at God, making perspective-based conclusions based on the filters of their own religious belief system. It gives you a framework in which to understand the Bible, but it does not show you what the Bible actually says. And that is why, and how do you know you have that? ¿Cómo es que tú conoces que tú tienes una perspectiva filtrada de la Biblia y manipulado? How do you know that you have a filtered and manipulated view of the Bible? When you have, or someone presents you some verses that do not square with your belief, and then what do? You ignore it. Oh, but look over here. No. no, look here. Tú, cuando usted ignoras la Biblia que dice esto, 1, 2, 3, 4, y entonces, no, pero mira acá, ahí tú sabes que tú estás errado. Usted está mirando la Biblia de acuerdo a una filosofía, de acuerdo a una enseñanza teológico de prescrito por su creencia religiosa, por su denominación, por su religión. Pero no es la verdad bíblica. Right? But those perspectives are not the perspective that I have, that I show you, that I'm teaching on, does not have anything like that happen. There's nothing like that happens. Every verse fits and every text fits. I don't have to make excuses. En mi enseñanza de la Biblia, yo no tengo que hacer excusas. Yo no tengo que ignorar unas cosas u otras, porque todo cabe perfectamente en la creencia. O digo, en la enseñanza. Yo no sufro eso. Yo no tengo que negar algunos textos para creer en lo mío. You know, I don't have to deny certain Bible verses to believe in what I'm teaching. My teaching is exactly how you read the scripture, without any religious bias, and that includes Hebrew biases. Sin prejuicios religiosos, incluyendo hebreo. Pues ya el problema empezó allí. Because that's where the problem began. You know, so some people resolve these inconsistencies in Christian faith, Bible-based faith, by going to the Hebrew. Algunos piensan que resolver a ciertas creencias inadecuadas, cierta inconsistencia en la fe cristiana o en su perspectiva escritural, resuelven con ir a lo hebreo, como si el hebreo es lo perfecto y lo mejor. Pero ¿por qué creen eso? You know, why would you believe that the Hebrew context and the Hebrew faith is better? Why do you think that? Because out of all the faith in the world, the one that God criticized, was the Hebrew one, the Israel, what they did. See? So de toda la fe que hay en el mundo, la más que Dios criticó era la hebrea. Yo no sé por qué tú quieres volver a eso. Why would you want to go to that one when God actually talks against that in the Bible? Not because of what he did, but because of what they did. There's a problem there. Hay un problema allí, no por lo que Dios hizo, no por lo que Dios dijo, sino lo que el hombre hace en reacción a lo que Dios dice. So hay problema ahí. Pensar que tú vuelves allí como solución, como si fuera más seguro o mejor, es ilógico. You know, so to think that it's better to go to the Hebrew is illogical, because God threw out the guys who were in the Hebrew before you even knew it existed. All right. So, and in any case, getting back to this thing with Buddha being the teacher of the deity, you see that God brings out Israel not only with the teaching of science, because we would have been more than 2,000 years advanced right now if Israel had stayed in the truth and realized what the truth was and developed from there, but also in the establishment of the spiritual things, the truth behind all everything else. So Israel hubiera traído la verdad no solamente científico y matemático, sino también en lo que es el Dios verdadero. So God, the Israel would have brought the truth of science and math and the true God, creator of the heaven and the earth. Where all the other nations didn't have any idea of, just some inkling, something that was telling them there is something, but we just can't put our finger on it. Right? So ellos tenían alguna idea, pero no sabían suficiente para poner su dedo e identificarlo. Israel hubiera traído esa verdad. And we know that God deals with the other nations. Sabemos que Dios trató y trata con las demás naciones. Hemos probado eso ya con Daniel y José, right? We know with Joseph and Daniel that God does deal with these other nations. You know, God does talk to the leaders of these other nations. And there are great similarities in what God instructed Israel to what the other nations were doing already in terms of their religious, or should we say scientific development. In other words, we cannot divorce God from the other nation. We cannot say that God wasn't dealing with them, that they did not understand. That is clear. But for that, God had a purpose for Israel. Sí, no podemos decir que Dios no trató con las demás naciones, solo que no entendían. Y por eso era el propósito especial, para el tesoro especial de Dios. That was the special purpose, the particular purpose for a particular people. Right? Exodus 19. Read it. Understand what God is doing. Don't look at it religiously. Look at it in reality. No mira Éxodo 19 religiosamente, míralo en la realidad. ¿Qué es lo que Dios quiere hacer con Israel? What is it that God is doing with Israel? He's setting the record straight. That's why the records, creation records and all of that, it's derived from all of these other myths and nations. Yet none of them knew the God who created the heavens and the earth. Although he tried to sneak in, somebody had identified something, right? But they don't have the whole story. That's why God separates Israel, to give them the whole story so that they become a holy nation. Teaching, getting the record straight at the time when education is starting, at the time before atheism has a chance to form due to the lack of knowledge, filling in with science, but without the knowledge of the God who created the heavens, the truth of God. Israel didn't understand that, and that is why the world continued on. Polytheism, corroding slowly through the knowledge of science, until finally there was room, there was space, intellectual space, to become independent on the ignorant gods, or ignorant deities of ignorance. And that was it. Since there was no God of the Bible, all that's left is no God. Obviously, if you eliminate all the other gods and you don't have the truth of God, then you have effectually atheism. Right? Entonces tú tienes el ateísmo cuando ya, bueno, tú tienes solamente conocimiento cuando ya se elimina toda la necesidad, la ignorancia que forja la necesidad de deidades. No hay necesidad más de deidades. Y allí empieza entonces, cuando vienen ahora a hablarte del Dios de la Biblia, ellos dicen, okay. So when the God of the Bible then comes out, then we have this denial and the need for atheism and the room for it, frankly, due to the fact that just like Israel didn't understand what being a holy nation entailed, we have then the Christian who didn't understand what holy entailed and still allowed the spacing for atheism to develop, to continue to develop. Entonces, that's what the Christians inherited from the Hebrew tradition. Lo que los cristianos recibieron de los hebreos todavía mantuvo el espacio y forjó el espacio para el ateísmo seguir en crecimiento. And that is what we have. We have here, look at this. This is also another interesting issue. Again, you have to be, if you don't understand what we're doing, we're showing you how intellectual handling of these religious ideas shows you that these religious ideas are forged through the level of intellectual capacity. That's all. That's what determines this. So here we're going to see again, it says here, historically, this is classical Greece and Rome. Is this what I was looking at just now? Oh no, I'm sorry. We're talking about Jainism or Jainism. Jains see their tradition as eternal. Organized Jainism can be dated back to Mahavira, a teacher of the 6th century before the Christian era. Again, 600 years, right? It's the same time period. And a contemporary of the Buddha. Jainism is a dualistic religion with the universe made up of matter and souls. Okay? The universe and the matter and souls within it is eternal and uncreated. See, they didn't need science to tell them. They already got that. Right? And there is no omnipotent creator deity in Jainism. There are, however, gods and other spirits who exist within the universe. Again, why are there other gods that exist? Because they don't have understanding of all these things, right? So there have to be, gods, powers, right? And the Jains believe that the soul can attain, of course, godhood. It's every man's dream to become God, right? We have to become all powerful after this mundane life. So you have to understand, see, this is human understanding. Estos son cosas de conocimiento, habilidad intelectual humana. Los jainistas ven su tradición como eterna. El jainismo organizado se remonta a Mahavira, un maestro del siglo VI después de Cristo y contemporáneo de Buda. El jainismo es una religión dualista en la que el universo está formado por materia y almas. El universo y la materia, las almas que contienen, son eternos e increados, y no existe una deidad creadora omnipotente en el jainismo. Sin embargo, hay dioses y otros espíritus como demonios, ¿no? So spiritually speaking, these other deities, they can be demons. Notice how they believe in these deities, but they don't believe in a created God. You see, the focus is against the Creator God. That notion. So everything else is okay except the Creator God. Get him out of your thinking processes. So anyone can look at this and say, you know what? This could have been a design of the spiritual enemy of God, the devil, and his demons, as to create this anti-God, anti the Creator God, anti the God of the Bible mentality. Because anything goes, right? Doesn't matter. Deities, this, that, superpowers, Superman, Thors, as long as it's not the God of the Bible. Ya, tú tienes que todo esto es que está bien si solo que no es el Dios de la Biblia. Vamos a apoyar esta creencia, vamos a apoyar todo esto, otras deidades y cosas, pero no el Dios de la Biblia. So vemos como esa estrategia. Sin embargo, hay dioses y otros espíritus que existen dentro del universo, y los jainistas creen que el alma puede alcanzar la divinidad. And you notice that the belief that we can attain divinity, que nosotros podemos alcanzar divinidad. No dijo el diablo a Eva, ¿qué le dijo? Dios sabe que ustedes serán como dioses, como Él es. So this is an utterance from the Garden of Eden. The devil said this to Eve. You will be as he is. See, the issue that you will obtain if you eat of this fruit, of this tree, you will obtain the same thing that God is, his divinity. That's what the devil offered Eve. You see the pattern, see the connection? Sin embargo, ninguno de estos seres sobrenaturales ejerce ningún tipo de actividad creativa ni tiene la capacidad o habilidad de intervenir en las respuestas a las oraciones. So, again, this is the Spanish rendering of what we just read. The incredible issue that you guys can become gods. There's other religions today in this world that teach you that we will become gods. You see that? This is not a new thing, this idea. What is very older than even this, is that it's anti-God of the Bible, because that's the pain in the butt. You see, ese es el dolor en el fundillo, es el Dios de la Biblia, y ese es el punto que todas estas religiones, todas estas creencias quieren refutar. All right. So I've run out of time for today. This again is going to be, that's the second. I'm going to close this up next week, and the third by going into the more Greco-Roman instincts of the history of atheism. But so far, hasta este momento hemos realizado que el crux del asunto es contrariedad al Dios de la Biblia. Ateísmo, en su definición, es contrariedad o negación al Dios de la Biblia. Y vemos que todos los politeístas y cosas es contra el Dios de la Biblia. So we still saw that all atheism is based on the negation of the God of the Bible in particular. The different religious ideas that we've seen are all against the notion of the God of the Bible. And we saw that polytheism in all of its glory is nothing more than against or anti-God of the Bible, right? And more so that their lack of knowledge creates all these other gods and deities. And that we see that as the development of science continues to go on, a less and less of a dependency on filling the gap with deities than to superpowers, creatures of supernatural powers, and then to ourselves being able to ascend to a higher level and having some type of higher level of understanding and powers, you see, and then we continue to go down. But don't mention the God of the Bible. The whole point is here is not to mention the God of the Bible, because that's the problem. Okay, so lo que hemos visto de todas las diferentes ideas, todas diferentes religiones, falsa y Dios, todo es contrario y negando al Dios de la Biblia. Y eso es lo que se ve hasta el día de hoy y en el ateísmo. So, this we continue next week. Seguimos la semana que viene en una más clase sobre esto, about the impact of the fact that Israel did not understand their instructions, the purpose of it, and the world developed without Israel, who was supposed to be there. And it would have been our existence today would have been very different if Israel had understood what holy meant. Number one, it really just that. Because once you understand what holy means, then the whole perspective changes. I even heard a debate. Was it a debate? Yeah, it was a debate. There was some friendly comments back and forth. And I could see how the person trying to bring in a different point, how he was using as reinforcement to his argument holy. These are the holy things of God. This is the holy law of God. You see, now the other guy, the guy who was on my side, he uses the word holy wrong too, right? But his point of view doesn't go against what the true meaning of holy is, right? It doesn't go against it, right? But the guy who is against what that is, his does. That's the issue. His posit relies on that wrong meaning, while the people who teach according to what I'm teaching, it isn't impacted by that, at all, and holy reinforces what we're saying, the true definition. Without is just something that we don't have, right? But it's something that the other side depends on. So the other side depends on holy being what it's traditionally kept at. And all of you'll do that, even pagan religions. You all depend. That's the thing about it. Even the devil's church depends on holy being what traditionally it is kept as. That's the problem here. God bless you all. Dios le bendiga a todos. Todas las demás iglesias dependen en que santo sea definido como tradicionalmente ha sido. Aún la iglesia del diablo de Satanás, Dios los reprenda. Pero las enseñanzas nuestras no dependen de eso. Santo, gloria a Dios. Y está en armonía con lo que Dios enseña que es lo santo. Pero that's it for today. Dios le bendiga. God bless you all. Remember, October the 28th, atheism must move beyond. Oh my goodness. You can't even imagine what's going to happen on October the 28th. It's going to change the world. Take care. Dios le bendiga.